our economy is stronger than the American economy in the medium term. And we are going to be stronger than the American economy, particularly if the U.S. government continues to pursue these types of policies, because we are looking to expand our trading relationships. We do have opportunities to build this economy.
The Canadian government has big ambitions to make this country a global energy superpower.
It fits into that. It also fits into the other objective of Canada becoming an energy superpower.
So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
The summer of 2025 marked a turning point in North America's energy story. On one side of the border, the United States froze a major offshore wind project, leaving thousands of workers in limbo. On the other, Canada launched its very first LNG shipment from Kitimat, British Columbia, sending billions of dollars worth of natural gas across the Pacific. Two events unfolding within weeks of each other, yet together they sketched a new map of regional power. The halted project, Revolution Wind, had been expected to deliver electricity to 350,000 households in New England and sustain over 1,000 union jobs. But on August 25th, Washington abruptly pressed pause, citing vague national security concerns and leaving the region exposed. Contrast that with June 30th, when Canada's $40 billion LNG project, described as the largest private investment in the country's history, finally came online, signaling to Asian buyers that a new long-term supplier had arrived. These contrasting images could not be more symbolic. While the U.S. stumbled, Canada advanced, quietly stepping into a role some now describe as an emerging energy superpower. The question is simple but unsettling. Are we watching a moment where Canada begins to overtake its neighbor in shaping the future of energy? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple like helps push this video to more people who need to see it. If Canada's first LNG shipment marked momentum, the halted U.S. project revealed the cost of standing still. For families in New England, the suspension of Revolution Wind wasn't just another policy decision. It was a direct hit to daily life. ISO New England, the grid operator serving 15 million people, warned that the delay threatened both stability and affordability across the region. Instead of benefiting from clean, steady power, households now face the prospect of hundreds of millions in extra energy costs pushed onto their monthly bills. Businesses, too, are bracing for higher operating expenses just as inflationary pressures continue to bite. For union workers, the consequences were even more immediate. 1,000 jobs evaporated overnight, with thousands more in support industries suddenly at risk. And Revolution Wind wasn't an isolated case. Only weeks earlier, Atlantic Shores, another offshore wind project that could have powered 700,000 homes and created 2,000 jobs, was canceled entirely. The pattern is clear. Projects vanish, opportunities disappear, and communities are left in the dark, both literally and figuratively. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. While New England struggles with uncertainty, Canada is charting the opposite course, unlocking new momentum through liquefied natural gas. At full capacity, the LNG Canada project is expected to ship 14 million tons annually, a scale large enough to reposition the country as a central player in Pacific energy markets. Unlike many global suppliers, Canada can point to a decisive advantage. Its LNG is estimated to generate roughly 60% lower carbon emissions than the global average, a feature that resonates strongly with buyers in Asia. Japan, South Korea, China, and Malaysia are already signaling that Canada represents the kind of stable, long-term partner capable of partially replacing not only American supply but even traditional flows from the Middle East. Geography adds another edge. The port of Kitimat allows Canadian cargoes to reach Asia without detouring through the Panama Canal, cutting both time and shipping costs while reducing emissions along the way. And then there is the matter of price. Canadian gas currently trades at less than half the Henry Hub benchmark in the United States, giving exporters a cost advantage that is difficult for competitors to match. Together, these factors position Canada not as a marginal supplier, but as an emerging force recalibrating the balance of energy trade across the Pacific. Canada's energy shift is not confined to natural gas. Alongside LNG, crude oil has entered a new chapter with the long-awaited expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. The project has lifted capacity to nearly 890,000 barrels per day, a dramatic seven-fold increase in Canada's ability to move oil to the coast. The impact was immediate. Shipments to markets beyond the United States have already tripled since the line came online, breaking a decades-long pattern of near-total dependence on a single buyer. That diversification has carried a financial reward. The discount long attached to Western Canadian Select, once as wide as $18 compared to West Texas Intermediate, has narrowed to just $12 a barrel, effectively raising the value of Canadian crude. Even Ottawa has underlined the broader payoff. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland noted that the pipeline alone is expected to add 0.25 percentage point to Canada's GDP, a significant boost from a single piece of infrastructure. More than just numbers, it signals a structural shift. Canada is no longer locked into selling almost exclusively to the U.S. Instead, it is stepping onto the global stage as a supplier with reach, leverage, and options. As Canada broadens its reach with both LNG and oil, the United States has taken a very different path, stepping back from renewables just as global demand for clean power is entering its steepest growth phase. On his very first day back in office, President Trump ordered a suspension of all federal offshore wind permits, with no indication of when or if they might resume. The move sent shockwaves through the sector, effectively freezing billions of dollars in planned investment and signaling to developers that the federal government no longer intended to back the technology. The consequences ripple well beyond the canceled projects. More than 17,000 offshore wind jobs, many clustered along the Atlantic seaboard, were thrown into jeopardy, while thousands more in manufacturing, logistics, and local services suddenly faced uncertainty. For communities that had begun training new workforces and upgrading port facilities to serve the offshore industry, the reversal felt like pulling the rug out from under years of preparation. The policy was presented under the banner of Unleashing American Energy, a slogan meant to reaffirm support for oil and gas. But beneath the rhetoric lies a contradiction. U.S. oil and gas production indeed reached record highs in 2024, yet employment in the sector has fallen by nearly 1/5 over the past 5 years. Efficiency gains, automation, and capital discipline have kept output strong, but they have also eroded the promise of job creation that once justified heavy reliance on fossil fuels. For many workers, the supposed return to traditional energy has not translated into steady paychecks. What emerges is a picture of misaligned priorities, protecting an industry that is structurally shedding jobs while constraining one that could deliver both employment and competitiveness in a low-carbon future. Instead of diversifying its portfolio, Washington has effectively doubled down on a shrinking base, leaving new industries underdeveloped at precisely the moment when global capital is flowing into them. By choosing short-term political messaging over long-term industrial strategy, the U.S. risks weakening its own energy backbone, eroding resilience, and ceding ground to neighbors more willing to adapt to a changing market. Every policy choice leaves a mark, and the contrast between Canada and the United States is now reshaping the entire regional landscape. As Washington retreats from offshore wind, it loses a critical source of clean power and exposes millions of households to the twin pressures of higher costs and looming shortages. The U.S. risks tightening its own energy margins at the very moment when stability is most needed. North of the border, the picture is far different. Canada is simultaneously scaling up LNG exports and pushing crude oil to global markets, diversifying its outlets and extending influence far beyond North America. With every new cargo, Ottawa signals that it is no longer a supplier tethered to one buyer, but a competitor ready to serve multiple continents. The response abroad is telling. Asian economies facing relentless demand for reliable supply are turning toward Canada as a dependable partner. In Europe, policymakers wary of political shocks are also beginning to see Canada as a hedge, an alternative to the volatility surrounding U.S. energy policy. Two nations share the same continent, yet their trajectories could not be more different. One is narrowing its energy frontier, the other is widening it, redrawing the map of power and trade in the process. What began as an economic adjustment is now evolving into something larger, a shift in geopolitical weight. With LNG that boasts lower carbon intensity and crude oil priced competitively on world markets, Canada is increasingly described as an emerging energy superpower. The phrase captures more than just export volumes. It reflects a new ability to shape alliances, supply chains, and long-term strategy. For the United States, the contrast is sharp. By allowing politics to stall infrastructure and constrain renewables, Washington has gradually weakened its leadership role. Markets notice, and so do governments. From Asia to Europe, major economies are beginning to treat Canada not merely as a backup supplier, but as a trusted alternative, one less entangled in partisan swings and more consistent in its commitments. Soft power is woven into this transformation. Canada's reputation as a stable democracy that embraces emissions reduction targets and respects international trade rules adds credibility to its exports. Energy buyers are not just purchasing molecules or barrels, they are buying into a system they believe will remain predictable. Step by step, a new energy order is taking shape, one in which Canada commands influence not only through resources but through the stability and reliability that global partners increasingly value. Each LNG vessel leaving Kitimat carries more than natural gas. It carries a signal of shifting power. For decades, the United States assumed it would set the rhythm of global energy. Yet today, by sidelining renewables and pursuing short-term fixes, it risks eroding the very leadership it once claimed. Canada, by contrast, is seizing the moment. With new markets opening in Asia and oil shipments flowing beyond the continental boundary, it is building the kind of durable influence that shapes decades, not election cycles. The opportunity is golden, and Ottawa is positioning itself to hold it firmly. Which raises the deeper question: is the U.S. quietly handing its role to its northern neighbor? And if this trajectory continues, who will ultimately control the flows of energy that sustain economies around the globe? That's the crossroads we stand at. Two countries, two choices, and a future still unwritten. The outcome may not be determined today, but the direction is already clear enough to spark debate. What do you think? Is Canada on track to become the next great energy power, or will the U.S. find a way to reclaim its lead? If this video gave you something to think about, like and subscribe to support more content like this. Thank you.